What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in and checking out my latest video. So today's video, guys, is going to be talking to you about an absolute war, potential for fight of the year. Really shocked that this fight has not been getting more exposure by the media. And today I'm going to be talking about none other than the David Benavidez versus David Lemieux fight that's going to be taking place in Arizona. So both of these fighters, both aggressive action fighters, and they both have different ways that they like to work in the ring. We're going to talk about that and definitely have some advantages over one another. But nonetheless, this is a fight that you're not going to want to miss. And let's get right into this video, guys. Talk about both of these fighters and what they bring to the table. Let's first start off with my fellow Canadian David Lemieux and what he brings to this fight. So when you're talking about David Lemieux, you look at Lemieux as a fighter who has never shied away from challenges. This is a guy who he challenged Triple G when no one wanted to fight Triple G at that time. Everybody was business experts at that kind of era when Triple G was coming out in his prime, smashing everyone left, right, and center. David Lemieux stepped up to the table, and I give him a lot of credit for that because a lot of people did not want a part of Triple G. Now, when you look at David Lemieux, he has vicious power in both hands. He's got a good straight right hand. He'll also throw a right hook to the body. But where his main weapon is and his vicious shot that is amazing, probably the best power punch in this particular technique in the whole division would be his left hook to the head. David Lemieux's left hook to the head is vicious. That's his home run shot. There's not many people on this planet that can take that punch and survive. So David Lemieux, when you look at him, that left hook to the head and you throw it to the body as well, is just a vicious power punch for him. He consistently walks forward. He's very aggressive. And Lemieux has shown in the past that he is a fighter who can take some shots. He is durable. I've seen him knock down before, get back up. I've seen him in some tough, grueling fights where it's not going his way. He's a fighter who always constantly believes in himself. He's physically super strong, excellent torque on his punches. And he's a guy that, like I said, former world champion. He's experienced. He's fought a lot of different fighters all over the world. And this is a guy who is not going to play around in there. He's coming to win. And that's something that's going to be a very good experience for David Benavidez in this fight. Now, when we look at David Benavidez, he'll be fighting in his hometown in this matchup. And David Benavidez is only in his early 20s, and what a talent that this guy is. I've been speaking about him on this channel for quite a while if you've been following me. So when I look at David Benavidez, some of the key things to look for with him as a fighter: outstanding combination puncher. He has excellent hand speed, excellent work rate. This is a guy who throws so many shots. It's not uncommon for David Benavidez to throw an 8-punch combination. And he's a guy who just does so many things very well. He's got some underrated counter-punching skills. He can fight on the inside. He can use his jab. He uses a variety of different punches. He's unpredictable. And he's a guy who ultimately... he's a good puncher as well, but he's a guy who ultimately is not a one-punch kind of knockout puncher. He's a guy who's going to break you down with volume. And he's an excellent body puncher as well. That's something that David Benavidez does very, very well. And overall, he's just a super fun fighter to watch. Vicious uppercuts as well. One of the most talented guys in the sport of boxing, in my opinion. Now, when we look at this fight, guys, ultimately, I want to talk about some advantages that both of these fighters have over one another. When I look at David Benavidez, he is going to be the bigger fighter in this matchup. He's also a guy who has the hand speed advantage in this fight, and he's going to be also a fighter who's going to have more work rate, who's going to be the busier fighter of the two. That will go to David Benavidez, and he's also a more consistent body puncher than David Lemieux is as well. Now, when we look at David Lemieux and the advantages that he has in this matchup, he is definitely the bigger puncher in this fight, in my opinion. And he has that valuable experience that he has advantage of in this fight, where he's fought the Triple G's of the world. He's fought Billy Joe Saunders, Curtis Stevens, Gabriel Rosado. He's fought all kinds of different styles, and that kind of experience where he's had to go through adversity in some of these fights, it's going to be excellent for him to be in the moment and not be rattled by what's going on because of all these big fights that he's been. He's a former world champion. And he's a guy, like I said, he's taken some shots. He's come back. I'm extremely interested to see how David Benavidez reacts to the power of David Lemieux, because he has not been in the ring with a puncher like this. Now, he sparred some big punchers as well. You know, he sparred Dimitri Bivol before he sparred Triple G. So David Benavidez has been getting that working for a long time. I remember him as a teenager sparring Kelly Pavlik, and just unbelievable. But ultimately, guys, those are some advantages that both of these fighters have over one another. Now, some keys to the fight, in my opinion, if you're looking for David Lemieux, what I think he needs to do in this matchup to have some success, I think right away he's got to come at David Benavidez, land that left hook that I was speaking about earlier, get the attention of David Benavidez, showing him about this power and making David Benavidez kind of be a little more cautious than he normally is. That's the approach I think David Lemieux has to take, and David Lemieux has to control and back David Benavidez up. Because Lemieux cannot fight off his back foot, and that's something that ultimately is going to be a big key, I think, in my opinion, early on, especially because David Lemieux, the way he fights, he throws so much torque on those shots. He's looking to get you out of there with every punch he throws at times. I think that when you look at David Lemieux, late in fights, he sometimes fades a little bit. So I think the big key for him is the first 6 rounds of this fight are going to be massive for David Lemieux's chances to win this fight, in my opinion. Now, looking at David Benavidez, I think that David Benavidez has to utilize that jab that Triple G was throwing on. David Lemieux gave him a lot of problems. Also, Billy Joe Saunders gave David Lemieux problems as well with his jab. So I think you need to utilize that jab early. Also for David Benavidez, where you see a guy like David Lemieux who struggled sometimes in later rounds isn't the same kind of pop and energy, go to that body early on David Lemieux. And when David Lemieux gets on the ropes, at times he'll sit there for a while and he'll use his high guard and take multiple shots. So use that to your advantage, because if you're David Benavidez, you're an excellent combination puncher. So utilize those variety of punches that David Lemieux won't see coming because of the way he throws his hooks and other things like that. David Benavidez is very hard and he's very tricky to prepare for, just because you never know what shot is coming next with him. Now, ultimately, guys, a big key in this fight is David Lemieux, when he throws shots, he gets off balance at times. So that's something David Benavidez is going to have to take advantage of. You'll see him lose his footing, and that's something where Benavidez can really, potentially stop him late with that or hurt him at some point in this fight because of that off balance that David Lemieux displays. Now, at the same token, where we're talking about this combination punch and David Benavidez utilizes, it may be at times, depending on how Benavidez sets us up, it could be a disadvantage to him, and I'll explain to you guys why. So what I mean by that is at some point, you'll see David Benavidez, he'll sometimes just walk forward, now head movement, nothing like that, and he'll just start throwing shots. And when he does that against a guy like David Lemieux, who has that vicious left hook, and Lemieux is very good at setting up and countering with that shot, Lemieux might just come up, if Benavidez is throwing a couple lazy jabs and a right hand behind it, Lemieux might just come up, bang, hit him with the left hook. And if he connects with that left hook, this isn't like other guys like Ronald Ellis and some of these other guys like Gravel and different fighters that David Benavidez has fought, like Anthony Durrell. David Lemieux's left hook is a home run shot. And that's a thing where David Benavidez has to be very cautious and understanding that defensively he's going to have to be in his game, especially when he's throwing these combinations, that he sets them up properly and he's responsible defensively, because if not, especially early in this fight, that left hook of David Lemieux has the potential to take David Benavidez out, and it's a serious shot. So that's something to be wary of, in my opinion, on this fight. Now, ultimately, guys, my prediction for this matchup, I do believe that David Benavidez is going to stop David Lemieux late in this matchup. I'm thinking maybe around the 10th round or so. I think it's going to be a volume referee stoppage, I think, on the ropes, something like that, because of just the overwhelming style that David Benavidez has, his ability to constantly throw shots. And David Lemieux, I think, will just be a little too tired at that point and won't be able to defend himself, and I think the referee steps in. Ultimately, though, this is what makes this fight so great, is because we haven't seen David Benavidez against a fighter like David Lemieux, who has this vicious power in the ring. And I cannot wait to see how David Benavidez reacts to some of these shots early by David Lemieux, because David Lemieux is going to come out throwing, and at any point of this fight, his power makes it dangerous. And that's the key aspect of this fight. Ultimately, though, guys, I got David Benavidez by a late stoppage in this fight. Great fight. Credit again to David Lemieux, always taking on the biggest challenges. It's been an honor to watch this guy fight. so many times live. David Benavidez, it's always a privilege to watch a young up-and-coming superstar who wants to fight the best fighters. These are just two guys that don't do a ton of talking, but they come to fight. You got to love it. Arizona's going to have a great fight on their hands, and respect to both of these guys, and ultimately cannot wait for this fight. Let me know what you guys think on this fight. I'm telling you guys, do not sleep on David Lemieux early, though, in this matchup, guys. Those first 6 rounds, extremely dangerous for David Benavidez. Let me know what you guys think on this fight. Give me your predictions down below. What do you think of this fight? And ultimately, yeah, just let me know, guys. I can't wait to hear what you guys, your feedback on this fight, the video, etc. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in, checking out the video, and I'll be back again later with some more boxing talk with you guys. Thank you very much.